Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
He had that kind of posture that told me everything before the file did. Hunched shoulders, head tilted just low enough to read, "Don't try me," without saying a word. I'd seen it before, mostly in mirrors when I was a teenager. That stance you take when you know the world doesn't care and you're already prepping for the next hit. I was 54 then, still at the city's IT department, systems analyst. The kind of job where no one remembers your birthday, but they call in a panic when a dashboard loads 3 seconds too slow. I liked it that way. Clean, controlled, predictable. Then came Janelle. She sat across from me in a conference room that smelled like cold coffee and Lysol wipes. She wore no-nonsense clothes and had a file so thin it looked like an insult. "Kellen," she said. 15, quiet, reads nonfiction, keeps to himself. She looked me straight in the eye, then added, "He reacts hard to unfairness." Like it was a side effect. Like she'd said it before and seen it ignored. Before we continue, tell us in the comments which city or country you're listening from. Let's see which corners of the world we've gathered from today. Thanks. And now the story. I nodded like I understood, but really I just didn't want to look like I needed more convincing. "Group homes haven't worked?" I asked. 2 this year. No violence, just shuts down. 1 fight at school. Someone made a psych ward joke. He swung, didn't explain, just clammed up. I didn't flinch. I said, "I was adopted." That got a real reaction. A half-second pause. She'd heard excuses before. That one had weight. "I don't scare easy," I added, tapping the file. "This? Unknown father. Mother with mental health history. This is a Tuesday." She let that sit. "You'll need to attend court dates, school meetings, maybe some surprises. City gets potholes. Teenagers get bad days. I can triage both." She smirked at that, not friendly, just approving. Like I passed a test. I picked up the photo paper clip to the file. It was black and white, too dark, clearly a photocopy. But even through the grain, I saw it. Dark hair half over his eyes, jaw set tight, like he already hated the camera. "She's his mom?" I asked. "Elise," Janelle said. "He carries her picture everywhere. Like it's a passport." That line hit me harder than I let on. "What do you need from me right now?" I asked. "A bed, a door he can close, and a grown man who doesn't bail the first time he tests you." I nodded. "Done." I signed the forms. There were a lot. The last one was a release of information, and it came with a contact sheet. School liaison, social worker, a 24-hour crisis number I already hoped I wouldn't need. She stood to leave. "Tomorrow at 4. He'll have 1 duffel and the photo at the door." She turned. "If you ever need to talk to someone who's been in your shoes, your brother Miles?" "The psychologist?" I clenched my jaw a little. "We haven't talked much lately." "Still," she said, "he'd understand the terrain." I nodded like I would. I didn't say I'd call. She left, and I sat there looking at the copy of the kid's face until the room felt colder than it was. Then I shoved it back in the file, tucked it under my arm, and went home. The next day, I made sure the spare bedroom was ready. Not perfect, just ready. Mattress flipped, clean sheets, a lamp that worked. I left the door open. That part mattered. The photo stayed in the same place for 4 straight nights, right side of the nightstand, just under the lamp, angle precise like he was waiting for someone to inspect it. I never touched it, not even to dust. You could see it had been folded once, maybe twice. Edges soft like cloth, the kind of wear that comes from being held more than stored. I caught him glancing at it while brushing his teeth. Elbows locked, toothbrush half moving, eyes fixed on the sink but not really looking at anything. After he finished, he'd always bring it back to his room, set it gently on the quilt, like someone might accuse him of stealing if it wasn't visible. We didn't talk that first week. Not really. I asked short things. "You good with soup?" Or, "You need laundry instructions?" He'd give me a nod or a quiet, "Yeah," barely above a whisper. Never rude, just sealed up, like any word that left his mouth might be used against him later. I got it. I'd done the same when I was placed at my third house at 12. You play mute so no one knows where to poke. The only one he gave real attention to was Biscuit. She followed him around like she'd been waiting for him. When he sat on the floor, she curled beside him. When he walked past, her tail tapped the floor like a Morse code nobody else could translate. She even started sleeping outside his door, and I didn't tell her to move. That dog's got better judgment than half the caseworkers I've met. The second Thursday was when it snapped. I was in the kitchen doing dishes. I heard the drawer slam first, then the thump of something hitting the floor. His breathing got fast enough I heard it from the hallway. I dried my hands and walked to his room, kept my steps even. He was kneeling beside the bed, tearing through his duffel like it had betrayed him. Clothes everywhere, socks flung across the room, his back rising and falling like he'd just sprinted a mile. "It's gone," he said, voice cracked and sharp. "The picture. His hands went to his hair, fingers tugging, then back to the bag. "I had it right here." "Let's look," I said, kneeling down. "Start simple. We'll find it." He didn't answer, just kept moving stuff, opening every zipper like he expected it to magically reappear. We checked the desk drawers, under the bed, in the closet, even behind the baseboard heater. He was past panic, face pale, fingers twitchy, like if he didn't hold it soon, something would break inside. I lifted the mattress and saw the corner of it, just barely sticking out from where the bed frame met the wall. I reached down and pulled it free. "Got it," I said. He snatched it like I'd just rescued a person, pressed it flat against his chest, and turned away. "I thought I lost her," he said. His voice didn't rise. It dropped, heavy like a stone. I didn't say anything back. I just stood there with my hands still on the bed frame, watching his shoulders shake once, then go still. That night, he sat on the floor, legs crossed, back to the bed. Biscuit took her place beside him. He didn't look at me when he spoke, just kept his eyes on the rug. "She used to sing in the car," he said. "Not good." Just loud, I sat down in the doorway, leaned against the frame, waited. She made pancakes shaped like stars, and she smelled like vanilla lotion, the kind in the brown bottle he didn't offer more. I didn't ask, that was the deal. You offer what you can, nobody gets to demand the rest. Over the next few weeks, we settled into something like rhythm. I left for work by 7. He was always up by then, dressed, already eating cereal or pretending to read at the table. He had no issue following rules. Didn't touch the thermostat, always locked the door, kept his shoes by the rack even though I never told him to. The kid had structure burned into his bones. After school, I'd find him in the living room reading a book that looked like a brick. Space stuff. History, science, occasionally war, always nonfiction. He never asked for help, and I never hovered. I'd make dinner, and he'd eat in steady silence. The kind of silence that used to bother me, but now felt like a truce. Maybe even a little peace. One night, he set the table before I got home. 2 plates, 2 forks, water glasses, nothing fancy. Just prepared, like he was testing what I'd do with it. I said thanks. He shrugged. Another night, he folded laundry. His and mine. Didn't say a word about it. I opened my drawer and saw my shirts folded into these tight little squares, and knew exactly where he'd learned that. State placement. We weren't a family yet, not close. Not even warm, if I'm being honest. But we weren't strangers either. We were in that space where neither of us had the nerve to say we needed anything, but both of us knew if we stayed consistent, something would grow. Biscuit, though, she had no hesitation. She picked him, flat out, followed him around, slept at his feet, brought him her ragged tennis ball, even though she never did that with me. One night I came into the living room and saw her lying with her head on his leg while he flipped through a book about aviation disasters. Her tail thumped when she saw me. His eyes didn't move off the page. "You like dogs?" I asked, grabbing a glass of water, She's not like other dogs, he said. How so? She doesn't pretend to need more than she does. I didn't answer, just drank my water and walked out. Some lines don't need a reply. He rode in silence. Didn't ask what would happen next. Didn't try to justify anything. Just sat there, hands in his lap, jaw clenched tight, staring through the windshield like it was safer than looking at me. The call had come in around 10. I was still logged into the municipal system, writing a report on traffic signal data, when my phone lit up. Assistant Principal Larkin. Voice flat, half-scripted. There's been an incident. We need you to come in. By the time I parked outside the school, my ID badge was still hanging from my neck, and I realized I hadn't eaten anything that day. Kellen was on the bench outside the main office, knuckles red and slightly swollen. His hoodie sleeve was pushed up just a little. His eyes were blank but not empty, focused on something far away that none of us could see. Larkin sat behind his desk like he was playing the role of the concerned administrator. Clean tie, careful wording, 2 folders open in front of him like props. We're recommending a 3-day suspension, he said, along with a behavioral contract that would require some follow-up with our school counselor. What happened? I asked. He sighed, like I was already being difficult. There was a comment made during Earth Science. Another student, Trevor Pritchard, said something Kellen found offensive. What was the comment? I'd rather focus on Kellen's response. I stared him down. What did Trevor say? Larkin hesitated, glanced at the open folder like the answer might be hiding between the lines. It was a joke about Kellen's book. Something about visiting his mom at the psych ward. I turned to Trevor, who was sitting in the corner, trying to disappear into his zip-up jacket. He had the same last name as one of our biggest donors, the guy who chaired the PTA and liked to post pictures of ribbon cuttings on social media like he built the schools himself. You say that? I asked him directly. His face flushed. It was just a joke. You think that makes it better? I didn't mean anything by it. Yeah, I said. That's the problem. Larkin cleared his throat like we were off script now. Mr. Haynes, we really need to address Kellen's actions. I'm not excusing what he did, but don't pretend words don't hit just as hard. Kellen didn't speak through any of it. Not one word. He sat still, staring at the carpet like it might open up and take him if he was quiet enough. We signed the forms, and I walked him out past the front desk, through the parking lot, and into the car without either of us saying anything. The silence felt like a wall between us, thick, tall, and hard to ignore. He finally spoke when we hit the freeway. It won't matter, he said, eyes still on the road. You'll send me back. I kept my hands tight on the wheel, jaw clenched so hard my molars ached. I didn't say anything until we pulled into the driveway. Biscuit barked once from the porch like she was checking attendance. The wind was sharp, the sky gray enough to pass for dusk, even though it was barely noon. I cut the engine but left the keys in the ignition, turned toward him. Look at me. He didn't. I said, look at me. Slowly, like it hurt, he turned his head. I'm not sending you anywhere. You threw a punch. You'll deal with it. But you live here. You get that? His throat bobbed. His eyes looked glassy but not wet. He whispered, it's always the joke. And then the move I'd heard it before, from other kids, from the younger version of myself. You get used to the order of things. Someone tests you, you react, then you pack your stuff and move to the next stranger's spare room. You stay, I said. We do the suspension. We fix what we can. And if you still want this come spring, we talk adoption. For real, I hadn't planned to say it. It just came out. Solid. No hesitation. His whole body shifted like someone had released pressure. Not a smile, not even a thank you. Just this tiny change in how he held himself. Like the floor might hold after all. You mean it? He asked. I mean it. The next 3 days were quiet but different. He didn't hole up in his room. He didn't vanish behind a screen. He read 2 books cover to cover and made an omelet on day 2 that tasted like rubber but looked decent. I didn't critique it. I ate the whole damn thing. I went back to the school and met with Larkin and the counselor, laid out a plan that didn't sound like punishment, but didn't let anything slide either. Kellen would check in twice a week. He'd write a reflection, his idea, not mine. Larkin nodded like he was taking credit for the compromise. On the morning of his return, Kellen stood by the front door with his backpack already slung over his shoulder. He didn't speak until I grabbed my keys. "I want you to hold it," he said. I turned. "The photo," he added, "just for today." He held it out like it was something fragile, something that needed protection. His fingers lingered on the edge as I took it. "You sure?" I asked. He nodded. "Just in case." I tucked it into the inside pocket of my jacket. He watched to make sure it stayed flat. Biscuit jumped at the door, ready for her morning lap around the porch. As we headed out, I glanced at him and saw something settle in his face. Not peace, not trust. Those would come later, if ever, but something steadier. Like he wasn't waiting for the floor to drop anymore. Kellen was at the kitchen table with a library book cracked open when Miles knocked. Biscuit barked once and trotted over like she'd been expecting him. He brought bagels, still warm in the paper sack, and his laptop slung under one arm. "Didn't know what kind he liked," Miles said, nodding toward Kellen. "So I got everything." Kellen gave a quick glance but didn't move. He wasn't being rude. He was watching, measured, like a kid who'd had too many adults enter and exit without warning. I knew that look. I'd worn it when Miles and I were still boys, trying to guess which foster parent would bail first. Miles took the seat across from him, opened his laptop without asking, then pulled out a napkin and laid a cinnamon raisin bagel in front of Kellen like it was an offering. "You mind if I look at the photo?" he asked. Kellen didn't answer right away. His hand moved over his pocket, the one he always kept it in when it wasn't on the desk or by the bed. After a long second, he pulled it out, unfolded it carefully, and slid it across the table. Miles held it with 2 fingers, brought it up under the kitchen light. Then he stopped. "You see that?" he asked, tapping the top left edge. I leaned in. Just behind Elise's shoulder, faint and slightly out of focus, was a neon sign, half blocked by her hair. You could barely make out the shape of a globe and the top curve of some lettering. "Atlas Loans," Miles said. "That's their logo." There was this whole thing, like 10 years ago. Predatory lending, fraud, the works. State shut them down hard. But only one location had the full globe with the longitude bands like that. "Where?" I asked. "Ravendale Avenue. South Side. Pretty sure it's gone now, but I used to volunteer near there." Devin ran the outreach for the shelter project. He had a few regulars from that block. There was one woman he always mentioned. Came in, never stayed long, didn't take anything. Young mom, mental health history. Showed up, disappeared. Sound familiar? I felt something tighten in my chest. Not pain exactly, but weight. A pressure that came from finally seeing a shape behind the fog. "You think it was Elise?" Miles didn't nod. He didn't need to. He just said, "Devin kept a folder of pictures from an art grant. There's a sculpture out there. Metal bird, iron heron, bent wing. Weird public art thing the city never finished funding. If it's in the photo, we've got our block." I grabbed my phone and scanned the photo right there on the table. Pulled it into an editor, zoomed in on the background, adjusted the exposure. It took a minute. Then I saw it. There. Rusted metal feathers. One wing bent like it had been slammed by a car and never fixed. You could barely make it out near the curb behind Elise's elbow. "There it is," I said. "That's the damn bird." Miles already had his phone out. He texted Devin, quick and direct. We waited in silence for maybe 10 minutes. Kellen didn't speak. He just stared at the picture on my screen like he could will more details into focus. Devin called back. Voice sharp, clear. "I remember her," he said. "Name might have been Elise. She dropped by the pantry on Ravendale. Never took food, never stayed long. Had a kid. Beautiful little guy. Used to ask me about dinosaurs. One day they both stopped showing up. You have any records? I asked. No names. We weren't allowed. But when the block got cleared for that apartment project, we shifted all our active cases to Darlene's program, 2 neighborhoods east. If she didn't go into the system, she might have gone through there. I thanked him and hung up. Kellen still hadn't said a word. I called Janelle before the sun went down. She answered fast, like she'd been waiting for something to interrupt her. If I've got a location from back then, I said, who do I contact now? She didn't even ask how I got the location. Darlene, she said. She runs a group of supported living homes. Took a lot of referrals when Ravendale shut down. I'll loop her in and have her reach out. Kellen stood up and walked into the living room without a sound. He didn't slam the door. Didn't cry. Just left the conversation like he'd heard enough. I let him go. Miles stayed another hour. We didn't talk about the photo or Elise again. Just sat on the couch and watched Biscuit chew through a rope toy like she was punishing it for existing. That night, after the house was quiet and the lights were low, Kellen came out of his room holding the picture in one hand. He walked over and sat on the floor across from the couch. Biscuit climbed into his lap without waiting for permission. He held up the photo, traced the globe with his thumb, and looked at me. If she's there, he said, we go. There wasn't a flicker of question in his voice. No fear, just intent. I nodded. We go. I watched Kellen in the passenger seat, the notebook in his lap, his fingers resting on the cheap paper like it might vanish if he blinked too long. He hadn't opened it again since we left Darlene's office. The photo was tucked inside the front cover, just peeking out like it was listening too. We pulled into the parking lot outside her main office, a plain brick building with a cracked sidewalk and a ramp that had seen too many winters. She met us at the door exactly on time. No clipboard this time, but the same calm expression like she'd already thought through 10 different ways this could go. Inside, the chairs were metal with fabric pads. No magazines, no soft lighting, just straight talk and standard issue carpet. I want to meet with him first, she said, looking at me, not asking for permission, just letting me know how it was going to go. He deserves space to say what he wants, without translation. I gave Kellen a look. He nodded once, stood up, and followed her down the hallway without saying a word. I sat there for 20 minutes listening to the hum of a vending machine and the buzz of old light bulbs. That was the longest we'd been in the same building, without me knowing what he was doing. When they came back, his posture was different. Still tense, still cautious, but something had shifted. He looked taller somehow. Not in height, just in presence. Darlene stepped aside to let him pass, then said, "There's something else." She walked to a cabinet behind the desk, pulled out a clear plastic storage bin with masking tape across the lid. On the tape, someone had written "Miscellaneous Resident Items" in block letters. She popped it open, pulled out a small spiral notebook, and laid it flat on the table. "Staff cleans out storage twice a year," she said. "Most of it's trash, but this one, we couldn't toss it." The cover was scuffed, a corner bent back. On the front, in thick black marker, it read, "For my boy." I didn't move. Neither did Kellen. The room felt like it had dropped 10 degrees. "She wrote in it?" I asked. "Over time," Darlene said. "Different pens. Some entries are months apart. There are drawings, rockets, pancakes, stars, and letters that start with 'Hey, bug.'" Kellen stared at it like it was radioactive. Then slowly, without looking up, he reached forward with both hands and pulled it toward him. He didn't open it right away. He just sat there, breathing through his nose, thumbs pressed flat against the front cover. Then he opened it and read. 2 pages, maybe 3. Lips moving just a little, barely enough to catch. After a minute, he looked up. His voice was steady, but low. "She remembered me." I didn't say anything. That was his moment, not mine. We scheduled a visit for that Saturday. Darlene said we'd start in the garden. Less stimulation, fewer voices, more open air. "It'll feel less like an interview," she said. She does better when it doesn't feel official. Her eyes flicked to me before I could ask. If it goes well, you can bring the dog next time. Sometimes familiarity travels better on four legs. I gave a short nod. That felt like the kind of rule I could respect. Miles met us in the hallway on the way out. He hadn't said he was coming, but there he was, leaning against the wall with 2 coffees and a quiet expression. When he saw Kellen with the notebook, he didn't ask anything. Just handed him one of the cups and said, "You earned that." Kellen didn't drink it, but he didn't hand it back either. Miles waited until we stepped into the parking lot. The wind had picked up. There were still leaves frozen to the curb from the last storm. As we reached the car, he touched my shoulder. Just a quick squeeze, no words at first. "You're doing this right," he said. I nodded, but inside it didn't feel like right. It felt like I was carrying a glass filled to the rim with something breakable, and every step risked spilling it. The ride home was quiet again, but not the heavy kind. Just the kind where no one wants to break the stillness, in case it makes things real too fast. Kellen kept the notebook open on his lap. The photo stayed tucked inside, peeking from between 2 pages filled with loops of handwriting that looked like it was written during calm days. Maybe medicated days, maybe lucid days. I didn't ask. About halfway home he finally spoke. "If she doesn't know me..." He didn't finish it, just let the sentence hang. I didn't rush to fill the silence. Let it settle first. Then I said, "Then we help her remember. Or we just let her know you're still here. That counts too." He didn't nod, didn't argue, just kept flipping through pages. I saw a drawing, 3 pancakes shaped like stars, one with a smiley face. By the time we pulled into the driveway, Biscuit was at the window. She pawed the glass once, then disappeared from view, probably running to the front door to greet him. Kellen tucked the notebook under his arm and stepped out of the car. "You want to leave it inside?" I asked, nodding at it. "No. I'll hold it inside the house." He went straight to the couch and sat with his feet tucked under him, the notebook balanced on his knees. He didn't read it again right then. Just kept his hand on the cover, fingers lightly moving over the letters like he was trying to memorize the feel of them. I stood in the kitchen and watched him for a minute. Then I started making a grocery list. Pancake mix, vanilla extract, syrup. I didn't know if Elise could eat solids. I didn't know if she'd even come to the table, but if she did, we'd be ready. Kellen didn't speak the entire ride. He held the notebook with both hands like it had bones, like it could break. His knees bounced every few seconds like the motion was the only thing keeping his stomach where it belonged. I didn't say much either. I knew better than to poke holes in a silence that was holding the kid together. When we pulled into the parking lot, the garden came into view first. Raised beds lined with weathered wood, one crooked bench painted by residents in splashy blues and yellows. There was a small wind chime over the fence, shaped like a sun with missing rays. The place was quiet, not empty. Just quiet in the way hospitals never are. Darlene met us by the gate. "Today's a good day," she said. "Let's keep it measured." She looked at Kellen like she was scanning for sharp edges, found none, and gave a nod. We walked down the mulch path together, slow. I saw her before he did, Elise, standing by a rosemary bush, hands moving nervously, twisting over each other like she was folding a piece of paper that wouldn't crease. Her hair was shorter now and thinner. The color had started to turn at the roots, soft gray threading through the brown. She looked small, but not broken. Not today. She didn't move when she saw him, just blinked once like her body had to reboot. Then she said, "Kellen," like the name had lived in her mouth the whole time and she wasn't sure if it was allowed out loud. He froze, 1 foot rooted, 1/2 a step behind. I watched him take a shallow breath, then another. He nodded. Not fast, not big, just enough. She stepped forward, slow, raised her hand like she was unsure where his face ended, and the air began. 2 fingers touched his cheek, soft and fast, like the contact itself might disappear if she made it last too long. "I wrote to you," she said, eyes on the ground. "I didn't know where to send it. I wanted you to have pancakes on Saturdays. I didn't know how to make that happen anymore." Kellen didn't say anything, just reached into his coat, pulled out the notebook and handed it to her. No hesitation, no drama, just here. She looked at the cover. Her mouth opened a little like a question wanted out, but nothing came. Her eyes went to Darlene, then back to Kellen. "You found it," she whispered. That's when her shoulders dropped. Not much, but enough to see. Like something inside her let go of a rope she'd been clenching for years. We sat on the bench. I hovered nearby for a second before sitting, then stood again. I couldn't figure out what to do with my hands. There's no guidebook for how to be the guy in the middle of something this fragile. Miles stayed back near the gate, hands in his pockets, head down, giving them space without drifting too far. He knew when presence mattered more than participation. Elise started talking in fits and starts, like she was trying to lay out pieces of a jigsaw puzzle she hadn't seen in years. She told him about when he was born, how quiet he was, how wide his eyes were, how she used to sing in the kitchen and he'd make this soft little noise like he was humming along. Then she shifted. The words got harder, slower. "It crept in," she said. "At first it was just nerves. A little fear. Then I saw patterns in license plates. Thought buses were following us. I stopped eating food I didn't cook myself. Her hands never stopped moving. Folding, unfolding, twisting again. I left notes under doors. Wrote letters that didn't make sense. I thought men at the pharmacy were tracking us. I thought if I left, if I got small enough, you'd be safer." Kellen didn't move. His face stayed still, but his hands gripped the bench like he was anchoring himself. I thought the bad stuff was around me. I thought I could take it with me if I just disappeared. I could see it in his jaw, the way he was memorizing every word, like he might need to recite them later just to believe they'd happened. I felt my own throat tighten, but I kept my eyes on the rosemary bush just past her shoulder. She looked like she wanted to vanish into it. Kellen finally spoke. "I've been reading books about the brain," he said. "Not the inspirational kind." The science ones. Elise gave a tiny laugh, barely a sound. He told her about school, about Biscuit, about how he liked nonfiction because stories made him nervous. "Too many made-up rules," he said. "I don't like surprises in writing." He didn't tell her about the punch. I didn't either. Not now. It didn't belong here, not with dirt under our feet and too much unsaid still floating in the air. A bell chimed somewhere in the building, soft, intentional, like it was signaling a shift, not an end. Darlene stepped forward and gave us a small nod. "Let's end while it's calm." Elise reached out and touched Kellen's wrist with the tips of her fingers. "Come back?" she asked. "Yes," he said. No pause, no glance at me, just yes. We walked back to the car without a word. Kellen slid into the passenger seat and buckled his belt like it was just another errand. But he didn't look at me. He stared ahead, like the whole building was still inside his head. I started the engine, pulled out slow. A minute into the drive, he said it. "She didn't run." He let the words sit in the air like they were trying to settle somewhere deep. The third visit ended with Elise handing Kellen a paper flower she'd made in group therapy. The stem was bent. The color was faded blue, marker streaked across construction paper, uneven and honest. He didn't say anything, just slipped it between 2 pages of the notebook. By the 4th visit, he stopped flinching when she reached for his hand. That's when Janelle showed up at the house with the packet. Manila envelope, 3 paper clips, 1 blue pen. I opened it at the table while Kellen sat across from me, half a sandwich untouched on his plate. "If you're sure," she said. Kellen looked at her, then at me. "I'm sure," he said before I could, so I said it too. The hearing was set for the last Friday in April. I ironed my only suit. The pants were tighter than I remembered, but they buttoned. Kellen wore a blazer we'd found at a thrift store on South Main, and I let him pick the tie. He went with one that had tiny planets on it, dark blue with Saturn front and center. In the courtroom, Elise sat on the end of our row. Darlene stayed beside her, calm and still. Elise's hair was pulled back with a clip that looked like it hadn't been used in a while. Her hands stayed folded in her lap. The judge read the paperwork, asked us each a question. Me, Kellen, Janelle. Nothing hard, just enough to make it official. Then the gavel hit the block. It made a sound like someone slamming a door on wind that wouldn't stay out. That was it. We walked out into sunlight and went straight to a diner 3 blocks away. The kind with red booths and laminated menus and a waitress who refilled your coffee before you knew it was low. Kellen ordered pancakes. "Can you cut one like a star?" he asked the cook, who happened to be walking past. She laughed, grabbed the plate, and came back 5 minutes later with a lopsided 5-pointed pancake that looked like it had been cut freehand. "Closest I could get," she said. "It's perfect," he told her, and meant it. Elise wrapped her hands around a coffee cup and didn't drink from it, just held it, watched him eat like she was trying to memorize how he chewed. He asked her something small, what her favorite color was as a kid, and she answered like it was a test. I let them talk while I paid the bill. A week later, the school counselor called. "There's a writing contest," she said. "Local foundation. Theme is my definition of home. Just for fun, but there's a scholarship." When I brought it up, Kellen rolled his eyes like it was the dumbest idea in the world. Then he sat at the kitchen table that same night and wrote the whole thing in one go. 6 paragraphs. No edits. He didn't let me read it until after he submitted it. The last line stuck with me. "Home is the place that keeps your shape, even when you're not in it." A month later, they told him he'd won. The award ceremony was held in the gym. Folding chairs, weak coffee, and a mic that squeaked every time someone adjusted it. I wore my only suit. Kellen wore the same blazer, but added the star pancake pin Elise had given him the weekend before. She came too, with Darlene beside her, both of them sitting near the back. Elise's hair was brushed. Her jacket was buttoned wrong, top button skipped, second one fastened, and I fixed it for her on the way in. She looked down at her hands when I did it, then gave me a smile like I'd given her something that hadn't been offered in years. "Good catch," Darlene whispered. I didn't answer. I just looked forward. Mr. Larkin called out the names with a tone like he was reading funeral announcements. When he got to Kellen's, he hesitated half a beat. Then he read it clean and clear. "Kellen Haynes." I clapped. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. Long enough for him to hear it. Kellen walked up, took the paper with both hands, and nodded once. No speech, no smile. But his eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on Elise. That's when something in his shoulders eased. Trevor sat in the second row, eyes on the floor. His father stood in the aisle, took a picture with a real camera. Flash on, fast shutter, then left before the last award. I saw it. I always see what people try to slide past. Afterward, in the parking lot, Elise pulled Kellen into a hug. Not tight, not clingy, just enough to close the gap between them. "You wrote like you mean it," she said. "I did," he answered. She stepped back like she was making sure the moment didn't break from too much weight. Darlene stayed close, hands in her jacket pockets, watching the rhythm of it all without interrupting. As we walked to the cars, Darlene fell into step beside me. "Coffee sometime?" she asked. Her tone was casual, like she was handing me a brochure, not offering something new. "Sure," I said. My heart didn't lurch or leap or do anything stupid. It just said okay. The first message hit my inbox at 7:42 on a Monday morning. A neighbor, someone I only knew well enough to wave at while mowing the lawn, forwarded me a link from one of those neighborhood apps where people complain about garbage pickup and teenagers walking too slow. The post was anonymous, of course. Profile had no photo, no name, just a generic handle and a string of thinly veiled language. There's a student at our school with a mother in a mental facility. How safe is that, really? The timing wasn't subtle. The night before, I'd posted a photo of Kellen holding his scholarship certificate. Elise and Darlene blurred in the background, just visible enough for people who wanted something to grab. I didn't respond. I took screenshots. Municipal work teaches you how to see patterns, what real people look like behind burner accounts, what kind of digital fingerprints get left when someone tries too hard to look clean. By lunch, I had usernames, timestamps, IP breadcrumbs just enough to hand to someone smarter than me if needed. I didn't chase every rabbit, but I knew where they burrowed. I texted Miles. He called 5 minutes later. "Don't feed it," he said. "Trash wants attention." I called Darlene. Her answer was sharper. "Protect your kid." So I split the difference. I filed a report with the city attorney's office, attached the screenshots, highlighted the phrasing, pointed out the date of Kellen's award, and the tone of the replies. I also emailed the principal and asked that the issue of community stigma be addressed head-on at the next school board meeting. That afternoon, I saw the post. Not the burner. Not the vague one. This one came from Trevor's dad, Mr. Pritchard. Real name, real photo. He'd uploaded an image from the gym assembly, tight frame on the row of award winners, but Elise was in the corner, barely in focus. The caption read, "Nice to see visiting hours are more flexible these days." He thought he was clever. I printed it. Walked it right into the principal's office the next morning. Handed it to her, face up, no folder. "We either fix this publicly," I said, "or I go to the press with how your school handled the fight, the silence, and the follow-up." She didn't argue. At the board meeting 2 weeks later, I spoke third. I didn't name names, didn't need to. Anyone paying attention knew exactly what I was talking about. My son threw a punch after being mocked. He took his suspension. He stayed. He did the work. He wrote about home and earned a scholarship. And still, grown adults are making him a punchline because of who his mother is. I paused long enough to let the silence land before stepping away from the mic. Miles went up next. He read from a page he'd printed, voice calm and even. "Mental illness is not a character flaw," he said. "It's not a contagion. It's not a moral failure. It's not inherited guilt." He stepped back and nodded at Darlene, who stood with both hands flat on the podium. "We work with people who are rebuilding," she said. "And you'd be surprised how much strength that takes. Some people lift weights. Others wake up every day and decide to keep going. Same muscle." You could feel the shift. People stopped scrolling their phones. A few leaned forward. A couple parents turned their chairs slightly, like they'd just remembered where they were. 2 days later, I got a call from the city attorney, the anonymous account. PTA officer. Used a burner tied to his work email, same one he used to sign up for the school's safety committee. Citation issued under the local harassment ordinance. He resigned the next day. Quietly. I didn't gloat. I archived the screenshots and moved on. That Friday, I got an email from Mr. Larkin. Short and stilted, but clear. The school would run anti-stigma programming next quarter. They were reviewing the discipline policy with an outside equity consultant. They'd issue a staff memo by Monday. I read the email twice, then filed it under a new folder I labeled, "Don't Lose This." Kellen didn't want to talk about any of it. When I brought it up, he barely looked up from his spacebook. He was sitting on the porch tossing a tennis ball across the yard, while Biscuit galloped back and forth like she was trying out for a team that didn't exist. "You don't have to say anything," I told him. "I just wanted you to know we didn't let it slide." He caught the ball midair and rolled it between his palms like he was weighing it. "You spoke up?" he asked. "We did." "For her too?" "Yes. For both of you." He nodded once. "Good," he said. "About time." Summer came in like a window unit with a busted dial. Too loud, too inconsistent, but impossible to ignore. Kellen swapped his hoodie for a faded NASA tee and started wearing slides around the house like he'd lived there all his life. I was halfway through a carton of ice cream when Darlene called in mid-June. Elise had a tough morning, she said, voice calm, like always. New dosage kicked in too hard. Plus, they ran the fire alarm drill without warning. I sat forward in the chair. Did she hurt anyone? No, Darlene said. She panicked. Thought it was something else. She's okay now, but we're dialing things back for a bit. Keep visits short, garden only. No changes to the schedule. Got it, I said. We'll stick to the plan. That Saturday, Kellen barely said a word during the 20-minute visit. Elise looked tired. Her eyes tracked things that weren't there. She reached for Kellen's hand once, and then pulled back before she touched him. In the car, he stared out the window and didn't ask to play music. That night, he sat on the porch with the notebook open in his lap and found a letter folded into the back pocket, like it had been hiding from both of us. It was dated 5 summers ago. The handwriting was messier. Some of the lines looped into the margins. To the boy who loves rockets, it started. If I can't see the moon, I still know it's there. And when you look up, know I'm trying to look too, even if I'm somewhere without a window. He didn't say anything when he finished reading. Just sat there, turning the folded page over and over. I stepped out and sat beside him on the top stair. Didn't speak. A minute later, he passed me the letter. I read it once and handed it back. She kept trying, he said. Not like he was asking if it was true. More like he'd decided it was. We still had our scraps. He stayed out too late once with a group of kids from the next street over. Didn't answer his phone. Another time, he bombed a science quiz because he forgot it was test day. When he got quiet, I didn't push. When I got angry, I scrubbed pans I'd already washed. That was our rhythm. One of us would drift, the other would wait. Then we'd meet back in the middle when it felt safe. In August, he asked if he could volunteer at the library. I signed the permission slip and dropped him off for his first shift. When I picked him up, he smelled like old glue and paper and told me that a woman checked out a book about beekeeping, even though she was clearly allergic to bees. She said she likes to read things that scare her, he added. You get that? I do now. He kept going back, 2 afternoons a week. Non-fiction section, mostly shelving, but sometimes helping people find books. He started keeping a mental list of what people borrowed and made quiet guesses about their lives. I listened, because that's what he needed. Someone to hear the pieces and not laugh at how they connected. Around the same time, Mr. Pritchard sent an email. Short, formal, full of words like deep regret and sincere apology. It read like he copied it off a PR crisis handbook. I didn't answer. I just dragged it into a folder called Irrelevant and closed the tab. Meanwhile, coffee with Darlene turned into 2 coffees. Then 3. We didn't talk about Kellen much, not directly. We talked about her work, my work, her mom's arthritis, my foster placements. The tired kind of tired you only get when most of your energy goes into keeping other people steady. She didn't ask for more, neither did I. That was the point. In early September, Kellen asked if we could do something different for the next Saturday visit. Instead of going there, he said, "Can she come here?" I didn't answer right away. I mean, just for breakfast. Darlene could stay. We brought it to her. She cleared it with the staff, wrote out the rules, arrival time, duration, transport, meds logged, and signed off. Elise came with her hair in a loose braid and a small container of sliced bananas. We made pancakes. She tried to flip one and folded it in half. Kellen laughed, just a little. Not loud, but enough. Still counts, he told her. Afterward, we sat at the table for a while. No one rushed. No one pretended it was permanent. That night, he came into the kitchen while I was rinsing plates. "It's not the same as living with her," he said, "but it feels like her." He didn't look at me when he said it. Just grabbed a book from the counter and disappeared into his room. That's how boys like him say big things. Fast, direct, no eye contact. Kellen stood behind the mic like it might judge him first. His hands didn't shake, though. Not this time. He adjusted the paper once, cleared his throat, and looked out over the rows of round tables filled with foundation donors, school staff, and two bored-looking teens in clip-on ties. He hated the idea of reading in public, said it felt like being dissected. But he did it anyway. Same thrift store blazer from the assembly. We'd let it out at the seams over the summer. It still pulled a little at the shoulders, but it worked. I wore the only suit I own. Third time, still holding. Darlene and Elise sat near the middle. Elise looked ready. Jacket buttoned right, hair brushed. That slight look of concentration on her face, like she was trying to process everything in real time without blinking too much. She held a photo in her lap, fingers curled around the edges. Kellen started reading. He didn't rush, didn't stall, just moved through the words like he'd walked them before. Home is the place that keeps your shape even when you're not in it. He said it with the kind of calm that comes when you've already lived through every line. After, people clapped. Not loud, not polite, real. One man from a youth program asked if Kellen might consider speaking to freshmen next semester about stigma and belonging. Kellen said, maybe. I knew that was a yes, just a cautious one. On our way to the lobby, Elise caught up to me and pressed something into my hand. It was a photo. Matte print, fresh edges. Her and Kellen sitting on our porch steps, side by side. Same shirts they'd worn the day she came for pancakes. Biscuit was in the background, blurry, tongue out. I thought he should have a better one now, she said. Before I could answer, she turned back toward Darlene, who was talking to a woman from the mental health board. Later, when we stepped out onto the sidewalk, the air felt clean. Cool enough to notice, warm enough to keep your jacket open. I reached into my inner pocket and handed Kellen the old photo, the one I'd kept since the day he got suspended. Still creased, still soft around the corners. He looked at it for a second, then pulled out the new one and held them side by side. I don't need to sleep with it anymore, he said, but I want it near. We dropped Elise off last. Darlene stayed behind to sign some paperwork. As we pulled to the curb, Elise hummed a tune under her breath. I recognized it. She'd written the lyrics in the notebook once, a lullaby made up in a parking lot somewhere. When we stopped, she turned to Kellen and reached up with 2 fingers, touching his cheek like she had that first day in the garden. Next Saturday? She asked. He didn't hesitate. Next Saturday, he said. Back home, he went straight to his room. Biscuit followed, flopping down across his feet like she hadn't seen him in a week. He pulled tape from the drawer, stuck both photos to the side of his bookshelf. Old joy, new proof. Then opened a book about flight and started reading like it was just another night. I washed 2 plates and a fork. The house was quiet in that way that means everyone's where they belong. I'm 55 now. People sometimes ask why I took the risk. They ask like there was a clean reason. There wasn't. The answer changes depending on the day, depending on how things went at work or how tired I am. But this stays. A boy showed up with 1 duffel and a photo, and we built rooms around it. We didn't fix everything. That's not how real life works. But we made space for the truth. We shut the door on people who needed it shut. And we kept the lights on long enough for him to see the room was his. If you were in my shoes, would you have taken the risk to bring Kellen into your home? Tell us your honest thoughts in the comments. And if this story meant something to you, please hit like and subscribe. It's just 1 click for you, but it means a lot for us. And if you enjoyed it, drop a comment saying this was a good story or share your own opinion. It really supports the channel.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.